For over a decade, every campaign of Critical Role has had one thing in common.
Someone's gonna get in a fight in the first episode.
And Matt will bring out his progressively better maps, minis and terrain while we're all glued to the screen watching for new character abilities, class reveals, and you know, whatever weird shit Talison's up to this time. But this campaign's different, we all know that. 13 players instead of 7 or 8, West marches in style and no combat until episode 3, and only 4 players were involved.
But that wasn't the only encounter with death.
And that style of game ties into Brennan's reasoning behind waiting 3 episodes. So let's put our GM hats on and take a good hard look at why we had to wait. What was different with campaign 4 compared to the other 3, other than the obvious? And what actually happened in our first fisticuffs fight? Welcome, I'm Flamey, and I only eat brown M&Ms. That's right viewers, I'm crazy. Not as crazy as Brennan Lee Mulligan making me wait 3 episodes for a sweet 40-minute fight in the Crowkeeper's Tavern, but still close. We're gonna take a trip down memory lane and have a nosy at the fights from the previous 3 campaigns, for research purposes, of course. Then we'll look at why campaign 4 is a bit different, and finally we'll dive into the nitty gritty ball cupping encounter itself. Okay. What does it mean that the 4th campaign has broken the decade-long cycle of openers? Here's my hot take. 1. Expect the unexpected. We're in new territory, new GM, new playstyle, new players among the old. 2. Brennan isn't afraid to do things his way. Campaign 4 is unique. It's a new era of Critical Role's main stage. 3. Combat isn't the only threat to players. Minis and maps aren't the only way players can lose their lives. From what we've seen so far, this is a more narrative-focused story campaign, which was evident in this episode. And 4. Death is around every corner. And the enemy isn't on the same playing field. More about that later. All 3 campaigns started with fighting for their lives, and campaign 4 started with a funeral. Do I need to say more? But to understand what's really different and what we can learn from 4 campaign openings, we need to take a trip down Critter Lane back to the very beginning. So first, let's look at some data. Campaign 1, episode 1 ran for 3 hours. Campaign 2 for 3 hours, 24 minutes, 3 just shy of 4 hours, and 4 for 4.5 hours. It is to be expected that as time goes on, episodes would naturally get longer, stronger roleplay, and more experience, yada yada. Now let's look at how long each combat took. Campaign 1's combat lasted for about 40 minutes, 2 was 30 minutes, 3 was about 40 minutes again, each one getting more quirky than the last, fighting a Naga, a Duragar, pretty standard, then fighting some zombies in the carnival, and then getting slapped about by some animated objects. They all took place around the same time in the episodes, around 2.5 hours in, which shows Matt almost following a pattern. Introduction, some roleplay, an inciting incident, and then combat. The end of the episode bringing the group closer together, leaving lots of questions about each other's backgrounds, you know, the old, this is your group of misfits for another 3 years, ta-da! But hold on, yes we are talking about Critical Role's history and Matt as a DM, but Campaign 4 has a different DM, and isn't his history important? Because if we look back through Dimension 20, which yes is a different style of game, more standalone worlds with their own wacky rules, does every campaign have combat or minis in the first episode? The answer is no, chaps. Am I saying you can expect no maps or minis and combat in Campaign 4? Nah, don't be silly. I just said there was combat in episode 3. And he does start some campaigns with combat, but he treats each combat as emotional punctuation, the exclamation mark in a conversation about belief, fear or identity. Mercer treats combat as a dramatic resolution, the final movement of a carefully orchestrated composition. So the only logical next question is, what makes this campaign different from the others, other than the obvious? Well, we're looking at something new and something hybrid. Would it be like the other campaigns? No. Will it be like Dimension 20? No again. It's a mixture of both, and West marches. Not only does this change how combat will be run, but how a lot of us perceive D&D and tabletop games going forward. If anything, it's worth watching for that alone to witness the new ingenious role-playing of a hybrid system created by one of the best GMs in the world. So let's break down what's actually changing. Episode 1. We normally have our dysfunctional band of misfits coming together to form their alliance and start their journeys to world-changing and messing shit up, on a pattern of introductions, tension, problems between them, inciting incident, and then banding together. Campaign 4 we have the death of a player's brother, and then a lot of emotional weight is building up in all the characters' relationships in many different ways to this NPC, and it ties them very loosely in some cases together. The group doesn't come together against the threat. Instead, that tension continues to build through episodes 2 and 3 and beyond, as 13 players from their different houses with their different goals begin to form their smaller groups, with more focused goals, I assume leading towards the same end goal, but who knows, we only have 3 episodes, silly. What will this look like moving forward? I'm sure some of this has already been answered in interviews and cooldowns on Beacon, but my guesses are, the 3 groups are already mentioned, soldiers, seekers and schemers. groups. Soldiers has already been confirmed as Sam Riegel as Wakanda Halavar, a human cleric, Whitney Moore as Tyranny, a demon warlock, Robbie Daymond as Cadigan Vale, a human beastmaster ranger, Laura Bailey as Thimble, a fairy rogue, and Travis Willingham as Tayor Pridesire, a Nama paladin. Others have started grouping together towards the end of episode 3, but who knows who Seekers and Schemers will be. Wink wink. I imagine, as it's now not live and pre-recorded, they could technically film these smaller groups on separate days and then cut them together in one episode, making it easier for their busy schedules, maybe even giving each group a certain amount of time. I suspect maybe 2 hours each. If this has already been confirmed, let me know in the comments, as I must have missed it. This will mean there could potentially be more combat, as 3 groups could get into more trouble. But by names of the group, soldiers may be doing the most. This seems less likely to me, probably just the motives of each group, and won't mean fewer scuffles for one and more for the other. But what do I know? Well, let me tell you. I know all about the first encounter of Campaign 4, so why don't you let Uncle Flamey tell you about it? Thimble, Cadigan and Octus go looking for Casimir, a supposed ally of the Aussie Fang, who is supposed to be part of his rescue from imminent death. Thimble narrowed it down to be his fault. The spell to Misty Step the Aussie from the Hangman's Noose didn't work, so they took off looking for him at the Crowkeeper's Tavern, the guard tower. Thimble fails here in a persuasion when dropping Casimir's name, and the madness ensues. Brennan brings out a map and Thimble's about to be put in a burlap sack, but she has her go first and flies backwards into the rogue with the bag. Brennan makes a point of saying no weapons have been drawn, hinting that combat isn't the only option. They are just reacting to Thimble plus 2 strangers they don't know. Thimble threatens the poor guy's balls if they don't call the others off. Thimble fails, I think the 3rd roll so far in combat to convince them, so with some quick thinking, she flies into his pants to hide, and guess what? Manages to hide. And Brennan points out the dude has some stanky junk. Octus uses Cause Fear on the head honcho Solomon, and he saves not being afraid. As you can tell, the fight is going great. Cadigan jumps over the bar and fisticuffs the guy with Thimble in his pants, and of course misses the roll. Brennan makes it into a comedy skit with the man bending over to rip his pants open, and Cadigan misses and falls over. Thimble Pants Guy grabs Thimble as she fails her athletics check and she is chucked into the burlap sack. Brennan says the Crowkeepers are so unbothered they don't attempt to fight, but a shitload come from upstairs and other rooms in the main tavern hall. Wulfric gets pinned down as Brennan rolls a natty 20 and hogtied him. They start doing some damage to Cadigan, and Solomon says, I don't know you two, so you're going to die, and Valus leaps through the window to save the day. Yay, Ashley screen time! Valus tries to whip the burlap sack man, and fails with a 2. Brennan says that Cadigan is flanking, gives her advantage, and she gets a natty 20 and whips the dude to death with a sensor. She hunters marks Solomon and Thimble fairy fires the room and hides in the rafters. Octus firebolts Solomon, succeeds and jumps on the bar. Cadigan pulls out a club hybrid blade thing and hits a guy over the head. Wulfric tries to get free and fails. Brennan points out they still have a choice. They aren't fighting warriors, they're fighting petty thugs. Valus doesn't care, and wants to keep killing them. Valus casts Guiding Bolt and burns a hole straight through Solomon's chest. She then starts swinging her sensor and telling the rest to run, succeeds in intimidating them all to run away, and the combat ends. The thing that really stood out to me about the combat was Brennan given several opportunities for other options on a successful roll of course, showing that the fight isn't just as black and white as slaying a mindless beast, there are layers to this encounter. And I love how hilariously terrible it went for the most part, which makes for a great first blood to the campaign. My honourable mention is poor old Tayor, who nearly got rocked by 2 demon tailors. He was set up by the Candescent Creed and sent to get his new uniform from specific tailors with a signature pouch, signifying Tayor is prepared for a new passenger. As Wick and Tyranny find out and go to the tailors to stop this from happening, they catch him in the nick of time right before the 2 demons in human skin are about to finish cutting up his shadow. This is what I meant earlier about the game being deadly outside of combat, and it's not a fair fight. These creatures seem much higher powered than he was, and he fell into their trap. So did waiting 3 episodes really matter? Nope. Is the new way of playing much better? Meh, it's just different and unique. And as a community, even if you don't enjoy Brennan's hybrid approach to a Critical Role campaign, we are gaining so much knowledge, information, and new tricks and insights from what they are making. So it's a win-win for everyone. New things will be made because of it, and you might like them, who knows, hey? But I think the most important question is combat in the first episode a deal breaker? And my spicy take is hell no. I've been having a blast just watching it all unfold. So what can you take away from this video? Critical Role breaking a 10-year-old tradition isn't a bad thing. It shows us as enthusiasts, tabletop nerds and creators that D&D and other systems are forever evolving, and that not everything needs to be resolved by combat. Not every campaign needs to start with conflict. You don't need to all be connected through a current conflict. You can use old ones too. It's not about reinventing the wheel, it's about cobbling together things that work to make something new. If you're interested in my videos breaking down episodes 1 and 2, you can watch them here. Let me know in the comments what your favourite favourite part of episode 3 was, if you like the encounter or not, and of course the most important thing, what's your favourite colour of M&Ms? And as always, stay spicy adventurers.